What if you could take 10 of your most painful Jira tasks and make them run automatically without writing a single line of code? In this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful no-code automation rules that we've set up for real clients at Grid.io, and we actually use these ourselves, and they save us hours every single week. But before we dive into the first rule, let's give you a 60-second crash course on how Jira automations actually work, so you don't just copy what I show you, you actually understand and build on your own. And stick around to the end because rule number 10 is a full-blown onboarding system that replaces entire SOPs, and most teams don't even know Jira can do this. So to find your automations, the best way to do that is to go to your current Jira project, and then you could go to your project settings and you'll find them in there. Or there's a button that's a little lightning icon here on the top right. This will take you directly to your automations and you could create one from here. So I'll click on that, and if you clicked on the settings, you'll be taken to this screen here. You'll probably be in the details view, but once you click on automations, it'll bring you to this screen here. And let me return to the rules so that we can start from scratch. So you might have some out of box. Typically these may be useful or may not be useful. Feel free to jump in and see what they do. Take a look for yourself. But sometimes I just turn those off. Other times I do tend to leave it on. I think the Jira service management automations tend to be pretty good. So to create a new rule, all we have to do is go to the top right, click on create rule, and our automations are broken up into three major pieces. So we have the trigger, then we have the condition or branch, and then we have the action. So a trigger is just that. It's a trigger. It's essentially what makes the automation happen. So this could be a created issue or work item. This could be a manual trigger from an issue, Jira issue itself. There's a few others here that are fairly popular. Issue created is probably the most popular one. Comment added, comment deleted, field values changed. That's also fairly common. Transitions, issue assigned. So pretty much anything that you could do in Jira manually is available as a trigger. Once we have a trigger, I'll use created as an option. We're going to have the ability to add a condition. So either a condition or a branch. Condition is going to be more common. Branching rules is also great for having different sections that won't affect any of the rest of the automations. So for example, if you're running a branch on one issue and then you want to run another branch on another issue, you could do that with branches within a single automation. So I'll add a condition here. So maybe I want to add a field condition. Maybe the assignee is myself. So I'll add that in. So now this automation will run and trigger when an issue is created. And if I'm assigned, now we could have an action. So quite a bit of actions here. A lot of things we could do. Very popular. These four, just as Atlassian and Jira say, they are the most popular options. We could create an issue. We could edit an issue. We could send an email, transition an issue. Oftentimes creating issues across different projects is a very popular thing to do. Same thing with subtasks. We could also clone issues and a lot more things down below. So that's the general outline and the way that we use our automation. So let's go ahead and jump in and build the very first one. So as I start creating these automations, I'm going to start with the most basic ones and they'll get more complicated and advanced as we go. So for this very first one, again, keeping things very basic, I'm going to trigger when an issue is created, and then we're going to be auto-assigning a task. So let's pretend this marketing board, every task that comes in needs to be assigned to me. So I'll add an action and then I'll search for assign. And then we could click on the assign issue action, and then we'll specify a user, and that user is going to be myself. So Josh, I'll select that, and now we're done. I'll go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to be prompted to give this a name. Here's a quick hack for naming your automations. What I like to do is specify the trigger and then the action. So I'll say issue created, and then I like to do a little arrow, and then we're going to say assign to Josh. And with this naming scheme, we could look at our automation list and we'll see the exact trigger and the action. And this helps you find your specific automation that you need a lot faster than just looking through each and every individual one, seeing what the actions are, when exactly they trigger. And this comes in very handy when you have like 20 plus automations within a single project. So there's our first automation. We're essentially just auto-assigning any tasks that come in and get created on this board to myself. Let's quickly go and test this out to make sure that it's actually working. Went a little bit too far. Let's go back to my marketing project, create a new item. Let me create one right on the board view. And let's say test assign. All right, once that's created, I'll jump in here and let's see if I get auto assigned to it. Perfect. One other helpful tip here is that if you go to your history, you'll see that automation for Jira does take action within this log. So if you did want to see if automations ran here, that's the best way to do it. So great, our first automation is done and we set up an auto assigning automation for myself for any new tasks that come into this board. So let's go ahead and auto prioritize tasks that come in as well. Let's go back to my automations, project settings, automation. And then here, what I'm going to do is just modify the existing one because it's going to be very similar. And instead of assigning an issue, I'm going to be adding an action to edit the issue. And then what we're going to do here is type in priority. Once we pull in our priority field, maybe I want everything that comes in to be a default of high, and then I could go in and adjust it later. So very similar concept to assigning. And here we could also assign multiple fields. So if I wanted to keep my assigned ticket, I could do that here. I could search for assignee. And now what I'm doing is pulling in myself. And what happens is I can also assign a priority and assign it to myself within just one action. You can leave multiple actions just like I had before. This tends to be easier. I know that the assignee does give you a little bit more features if you're looking to round robin or do something else. But if you're just looking to assign to a specific individual, this is going to be a really easy and simple way to go about it. Go ahead and update the automation rule. And I won't bother testing this one because it's so simple and I know it's going to work. We'll go through and test the other ones later since we could actually troubleshoot live and be able to find issues and fix them as we go. All right, so that's our second automation. We're assigning and we're auto prioritizing. Now let's go over a really common one, which is scheduling tasks. So I get this one a lot. A lot of teams reach out and they're like, hey, how do we schedule recurring tasks in Jira? We want this to pop up once a week for our team. How do we do that? So the answer is automation rules. And I'll go ahead and create a new rule for that. And what we're going to do here for the trigger is we're going to search for scheduled. So I'll search for scheduled. And here's where we get to set up how often and when the tickets are going to be triggered and created. So let's go ahead and set the start date of today, 5/12. This doesn't matter too much. That's just when this automation is actually going to kick off. If you wanted this to start later, you can adjust that. Now we have our occurrence, which is either, it could be once a week, it could be once a minute, once every hour, once every day, once every month. Let's just say I want to run this reminder once a week. Maybe there's a task to do, let's say weekly content review for our marketing team. So I'm going to run it once a week. I'll want this created on Mondays. So I'll select Monday and I'll do 8 a.m. Central Time. You could also see the next 10 runs here, which is pretty helpful if you're doing some more complex scheduling, but that makes it really easy to see when the next runs are going to happen. So now that we have our schedule set and this is going to run once a week on Mondays at 8 a.m., that's when our task is going to be created. All we need to do is add an action. So I'll go here, add an action. Then we're going to be creating an issue. And when we go to create an issue, I'll make sure that this is going to be the same project. We'll select the issue type. Let's just make this a task and we'll specify a summary. We'll call this, let's say, weekly content review. And we could add a description in here. This is also rich text, so you can use some markdown here to make these look nicer. Oftentimes we use tables in here. And the great thing about these auto-reminded or auto-created tasks is that you could actually set more information like assignee and like priority. So I'll go in and we'll do something similar that we did with our first couple of automations, and I'll select assignee and I'll select priority and I'll add those in. Now I'll assign this once again to myself and I'll assign this as, let's say it's going to be medium priority, nothing super high, but something that needs to be taken care of in the next few days. One more thing that I'll do here actually is set a due date. This is also very common with projects like this and reminders. So I'll search for a due date field, select that, and now we could add a due date. Smart values are going to be the best way to go about it. You could look up smart values or just use ChatGPT to smart value something. I'll just do that live right here. Create a Jira smart value for 5 days from now. So 5 days from now, if this is created on a Monday, the due date's going to be on a Friday. So this is our smart value. I'll pull that in, add that into my due date. Let's see if it works. This looks a little bit wonky, so I'll need to make sure that it's the correct formatting. I'll turn this rule on. Let's call it weekly marketing review. Name explains it all, so I'll just leave it at that. I don't have to do necessarily a trigger and then an action since this is a weekly review item. I'll turn this on. And then if you want to test an action like this out, the best way to do it is just to run the automation manually. You don't want to go through and have to wait for this or change the schedule every single time. So the way we run this manually is by clicking on the top right 3 dots and click Run Rule. So once this runs, we could go back to our marketing board. We could also take a look at the audit log just to make sure everything came through correctly. We have our first official error, so we could troubleshoot that right now. So the project or issue type wasn't set. Let's go back to our rule details. Let's make sure that we're setting the project as same project as trigger. I'm not sure why I would be messing up on that, but let me actually specify marketing content. That way it doesn't mess anything else up. Okay, let's try that one more time. I'll run that rule, check my audit log, refresh once it's done. Awesome, we got our success and we have our issue created. Could go back to our board and take a look and see where it is. Perfect, we have our weekly content review. Looks like our due date did work, so ChatGPT did well this time. Great job, ChatGPT. And we have our assignee, our priority set. So there we go. There's our weekly task. It's going to show up every single Monday at 8 a.m. for us as a marketing team. You could get as complex or as simple as this as you like. You could run tasks every single day, once a month. Most of our teams have tasks running a couple times a week and then once or twice a month on top of that as well. And usually I like to set up different automations for these. So if you have something that runs once a week, you could set something up that's going to run once a month as a separate automation with its own schedule. All right, so that's our third automation, scheduled tasks. Let's go over the fourth one, which is going to be reminders. This is also one I get asked about all the time. Reminders is one that is a little bit different in Jira because we're kind of bending the rules a little bit. That's to say, not to say that there's right or wrong answers within Jira, but we are going to be creating a custom field to rely on. And then we're going to be running the automation daily or hourly to be able to pull in our reminder and remind someone about something specific. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing we're going to need is actually a custom field. So I'll go to settings, go to issues. By the way, if you're still seeing issues, this is going to be changing to work items soon across all of Jira and across all the terminology. So just a heads up there. This may say work items for you sometime in the future. We'll go to custom fields and I'll create a new one. This is going to be a date picker. You can include a date and time if you want. I'll keep things simple and use a date picker for this demo, and then I'll name this reminder. And one thing to keep in mind is that you never want to create custom fields with duplicate names. So I'll go back to custom fields. I'll make sure that I didn't create a duplicate. There we go. If there's two with the same exact name, you'll want to change that for sure. Otherwise you end up running into issues with smart values and automations. Okay, let's go back to our project. So let's head back to marketing content. Now that we have our field, I'll go ahead and pull that into a task and let me search for that reminder. Here we go. I'll just pull that in right below publication date. So now that we have our task pulled in, let's go to automation. And what we're going to do here is create another rule, and we're going to have this be scheduled as well. And we're going to schedule this one to run every single day. So the idea behind this automation is that we're going to have this run daily. We're going to check the field that we just created to see if it's going to match the date. If it matches the date, it's going to drop a comment. You could either drop a comment or run a Slack message. We'll go over a Slack notification a little bit later, but that's the general concept of what we're doing here. So we'll run this daily, let's say also 8 a.m. beginning of the day, similar to our other automations. And what we'll do next is we'll go add a condition. So this is the first time we're using a condition. General idea here is that we're just narrowing down and finding a subsection of issues or work items in Jira that we want to take action on. So I'll click on issue field condition and I'll search for reminder field. And then reminder equals, and let's make sure that this is today. Time frame, let's see if I could set this to today. I might not be able to. Let's see. So let's do this instead. Instead of adding a condition here, I'm going to go back to my scheduled items and we're going to run a JQL search. So I'll add this JQL here, and you could, again, use ChatGPT. In fact, let's just do that for this demo. Let's go back to ChatGPT and say, now I have a field that is called reminder, and I need to run an automation that will drop a comment anytime that day is today. So a little bit sloppy there, but ChatGPT should understand what I'm trying to do. So let's see what it gives us. Perfect. Now.Jira date. So let's go back to give me just the JQL for the field being today. So we just need the JQL for this field. You might need to specify that. Reminder equals start of day. So let's copy that over, go back to our JQL here, and we're pulling in our field, which is reminder, and then we actually might need to specify this as custom field. We'll go over that in a second. Actually, reminder should work. Start of day, validate query, 0 issues found, and the way we can make sure that this is working and it's actually set up correctly is by going to any of these issues, pulling one up, and then setting the reminder here as today, and then now we could just double check, make sure it's set. Now we could double check and see if this is going to be found when I actually run this query. Nope, let me go back. So let's go ahead and run this again. Validate query, 1 found. Perfect. So this does work. Reminders equals start of day. So that's just pulling in anything that has a in the reminder field as of today. So what we're doing is we're running this daily. Anything that shows up here, we're going to be dropping a comment. So I'll add an action here. Find comment, comment on issue. And then we'll drop a reminder that says, hello, this is an automated reminder. So this is going to be the simplest way to set up a reminder. We could have, again, like I said, an action for Slack notifications, for emails, a lot of different options there. This is going to be the simplest, just to drop a comment. So let's turn this on and we'll go ahead and say reminder, and we'll turn it on and we'll run it really quick just to make sure it is working. So let's go ahead and run it. And now I'll go back to this task here. Perfect. We have our automation that just ran and it dropped a comment. So if you're already watching this issue, or if you're the assignee or a reporter, you'll probably get a notification with this in your email or through Slack if you have that already connected. But I'll go over Slack specific notifications a little bit later. So it's going to be reminders. That is very useful for anyone who's looking to maybe have a task on their board, but they don't want to close it out yet. But you want to remind yourself to check in on it at some point in the future. All right, let's go to the next one, which is going to be a template or an autofill. So the idea behind this is that maybe you want to autofill specific information, either your summaries, your descriptions, your priority fields, etc. You can do that and create those templates within automations. So what we're going to do here is create, and this time we're going to be manually triggering these. I'll manually trigger, and we'll allow all groups and everyone to be able to trigger this. And then we'll just set our actions as we did before. So I'll set an action of assignee. I'll assign this to myself, and there we go, wrong field. And then I'll pull in more edit issues, and I'll go ahead and set things like a description. Let's go ahead and set the due date. Let's go ahead and add maybe a summary prefix. So let's go ahead and fill out this information. This is a template. Let's say we want to add some formatting in here. In the description of our Jira ticket, using automation, I am not spelling good here, create a simple table. So this in Markdown for automation rules. So what we're doing here is just asking ChatGPT to give us the exact code to throw this into essentially into the description. So this is a template. Let's add this below. And what this is going to do is actually create a table for us. Again, you can do this manually if you're super great with your Markdown, but I tend to use ChatGPT because I pull in a lot of values, and this does make the process a little bit easier. And I'll show you exactly what this looks like as soon as I run it. We'll set a due date. I know we already had one of these before. We'll set this as today. Summary, we could pull in our smart value of issue.summary. And what the smart value does, and again, you could use ChatGPT for this, is it pulls in the current summary. So whatever summary is currently created, and then we'll say colon template, whatever you want to call this. We'll turn this on. Templates, actually, let's say manually trigger, and then we'll do templates. All right, so now we have our template ready. Let's turn it on. Let's go back to our marketing board, and we'll pull in, let's say, campaign messaging. So do keep in mind, things will get overwritten like the description field, as you'll just see. And now all we have to do is go to our automations here, and then we'll click on our manual trigger template. You could call this whatever you'd like to make it a little bit easier for users to understand what this is actually going to do. Let's click on that, and we should have the actions taken for us. So we're going to throw in all this information here. So as you can see, description was changed. Here's a really cool formatted table. Again, you could do a ton with Markdown. I tend to do that a lot with the description field. We have the signee filled out, the due dates filled out, and everything else associated with this ticket that we wanted to create. And then as you can see, the summary did also change. We added the colon template, but we retained the original summary of this ticket. So this is super helpful when you have a pre-selected number of fields or information that you want to add. Think issue templates. All you have to do is first create something. So I'll create a template test. And then all I have to do to apply this template is I go in here and I go to my automation and I go ahead and run this automation. It's as simple as that. You should see all those fields popping in here and changing. Perfect. So if you're wondering why these are empty, by the way, it's because there's no reminder or due date set here. All right, so that was our reminders. Now that you've got these automation rules in place, the next step is to build a workflow that actually supports them. Because if your Jira workflows are clunky or misaligned, all these automations, they're just gonna create chaos faster. So in the next video, I'll walk you through how we structure workflows to scale without overcomplicating things. Click here to watch that next.